Well, hello, everyone, and good afternoon. It is Friday, February 7th, 2020, at 2:11 p.m. Eastern Time. And after what seems like it's just been a ridiculously awful day of technology from the very morning until now, I think that I'm streaming. All I wanted was to come on here and spend a good hour with you guys because I've got so much to say. And it's been crazy. So now I don't have a whole hour. I know you're all upset. How are you guys all? Thank you so much, 716. This show, this little mini quasi Here We Are podcast is brought to you by Noble Gold. If you guys have been watching gold recently, you might want to get in on this action, but you can do that without even buying gold. It has skyrocketed recently, but hanging on to its coattails and catching up fast is silver. Yes, silver through Noble Gold. Like a dog that follows its master, silver follows gold. In fact, it sometimes even overtakes it, and it's cheaper to buy as well. Gold is around 80 times the price of silver right now, and that's quite a discount on the dollar. But you stand to make the same kind of profit. Between December and January, silver made over 14%. So if you are wondering who can help, Noble Gold can. The name has gold in it, but they offer silver, platinum, and skyrocketing palladium too. Find out more, call Noble Gold now and discover how you can retire safely with silver. 877-646-5347 or go to noblegoldinvestments.com. Hi guys, thank you Noble Gold for sponsoring my channel. Thank you. Whew. So much going on. So now I'm going to do that, and we're going to wait a second. Happy Friday. So awesome. So now we are on Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. I am watching the chat as best I can. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Somebody asked me just a second ago in the chat, what's going on? Why hasn't John Durham interviewed Carter Page? To which I will respond, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's nothing material that Carter Page is going to provide to John Durham that he doesn't already have. Here's John Cardillo. He said what is on my mind precisely. This doesn't concern me. Page was never charged, was unaware of what was going on behind the scenes, and Durham most likely has all of the related docs. Absolutely. He might not have anything that he can add, any inculpatory information. I've spoken with other Mueller victims Durham has contacted. I love it how now we are referring to them correctly as victims. So Carter Page, while he has been persecuted, there's no question. He has gone through the ringer. I still have some questions about Carter Page, but putting all that aside, the IG didn't talk to him either. Did he need to? No. He didn't need to. So there's that. I wonder if I'm not broadcasting on Periscope for some reason. Oh, Lordy. Well, hey, it is what it is. So listen, I have a whole bunch of things I want to talk to you about. I have really, over the past several weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I've had so much stuff going on, and I didn't prepare some very structured lecture or anything. I just figured that I would kind of riff off for a half hour or so now what's going on in my brain and what I'm working on. So the first thing I want to talk about is an article that just came up on Uncover DC. If you guys have been following the news or anything that has to do with this virus, you have heard probably every story known to man that this could be. It's a bioweapon. It's a mutated virus. There's AIDS spliced into it. I mean, every story you could possibly imagine, because we're not getting any information. But I've been following this closely since we first started hearing about it in December. And I didn't, finally I got tired of it. And I got together with Celia Farber, who's a writer and contributor for Uncover DC. And she has a very long history in the HIV space. And so she knows tons of scientists and, people who have done virology and people who've debunked virology and all kinds of stuff. And she came to me and she's like, let's do this. So we determined that we were going to do an investigative series on coronavirus, this new coronavirus that is coming from China. So we put together, this is the first in the piece. I contributed a lot of research to it. She wrote it. She's a brilliant writer. It goes through many of the different possibilities and the information that we're getting. This is not a piece that you watch or read, when you're on your way to catch a bus and you have an extra 5 minutes. This is a piece that you sit down. It's long. It's a lengthy piece that you sit down and you read and you consume and you digest. And it goes through what coronavirus is, what it's compared to, what they found in this one that they didn't know existed, what it could mean. There are a couple different things that have come out of our research so far, and after talking to several scientists about this, believe it or not. Number one is the vaccine connection, which we're working. We talk about it in here. There is a scientist named, I always mess up his name. His name is Dr. Lyons Weiler. And he's got this blog here that he's been writing on. And he's working with people at this institute. And he's decoding the genome that was provided for this virus, okay? What he found is pretty crazy. The SARS scare back in the day led to a vaccine for SARS. And the new coronavirus that they uploaded genome-wise has a weird element that's sort of this insert or technology that's a SARS protein that was supposed to make this vaccine that they wanted to develop or that they developed work better. The problem is that in testing for some of these vaccines, the vaccine dose didn't provide protection. It caused changes in the lungs of patients after they were re-exposed to the virus. So there's a lot bigger of a story here. Many questions need to be answered. How many people that have passed from this disease have been of anything other than Chinese descent? How many people have... What test are they even using to test for it? Because we detail a research paper in here that shows the discrepancy in the testing. It's a very big story. And we did a lot of work. This has been days of our time this week just writing it after compiling research. So it's going to be an ongoing series. There's a lot more to come here. A lot. Tom Cotton is on Twitter freaking out about it. There's a lot of people freaking out about it. I'm not so sure we shouldn't yet, but I'm also not so sure that we should. And I think that it's irresponsible to share information that's it's just not responsible for an outlet to share information they're not sure about. It causes panic, and everybody can be careful and cover their mouth when they cough with their elbow and wash their hands frequently and clean over substances and just don't let people cough on you, Do what you can to protect yourself. Have a plan in place, but let's get real information. That's what we're doing. Still sending data to Periscope. So that's number one. I've been working on that. And I have been paying attention to Tencent, by the way, with the real numbers. Number two, this whole impeachment thing. We got through the impeachment. He was acquitted forever. He said something yesterday at the end of his lunch sort of meeting he had with all the folks that he was entertaining and thanking. And I recorded the clip of it and I want to play it for everybody because I think it's really important. It got cut off at the very last second, but I think this is less a celebration and more of a beginning.
Elected president. And if I didn't fire James Comey we would have never found this stuff. Because when I fired that sleazebag, all hell broke out. They were ratting on each other. They were running for the hills. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. It's in the hands of some very talented people. We're going to have to see what happens. But I can tell you, in my opinion, these are the crookedest, most dishonest, dirtiest people I've ever seen. They said, this is struck. God, Hillary should win 100 million to 1. This is about me. This is an agent from the FBI. Look how they let her off. 33,000 emails deleted. Nothing happens to her. Nothing happens. It's unbelievable. But think of that. God, Hillary should win. When these guys are investigating Hillary. Then they go to work for Mueller, the two of them. And when Mueller found out that everybody knew that they were 100% this way, he let them go. But they deleted all of their emails and text messages. So when we got the phone, they were all deleted. Could you imagine the treasure trove? They illegally deleted. So they left Bob Mueller. He had the look, but he didn't have a lot of other things. Always had the look, Mr. G-Man. And I love the FBI, and the FBI loves me, 99%. It was the top scum, and the FBI people don't like the top scum. So think of that, 100 million to 1, and he's investigating me. And then, God, Trump is a loathsome human being, isn't he? These are the people looking at me. I'm really not a bad person. And Page said, yes, he's awful. How would you like to have that? This is the good stuff. This stuff 100 times.
And he went on to say, and we can never let this happen again. Throughout, he references Bill Barr. He makes jokes. It's really funny. But one of the things that he did in this event was he began to talk about Alexander Vindman. And if you've been following along with any of the work that I've been doing, you know that one of the theories that I've held for a really long time, and I still hold or have, is that Alexander Vindman wanted to change the transcript. The transcript was moved to a secure server, which they lambasted the president for. And the president responded and the administration responded. It was a joke. It was a mistake. But I'm convinced that Alexander Vindman was supposed to change that transcript to read the way they wanted it to. Even if it was wrong, all they needed was for that to come out in the media the first time. It was supposed to read the way Adam Schiff said. They hid it away, probably because they got wind that it was going to happen. This is my theory. And then Vindman couldn't change it. And President Trump yesterday started talking about that briefly and stopped himself. So it was a really interesting hour and 15 minutes. And I had a conversation with my husband about it, who, you know, again, we've talked about him before. He's not like the hugest political guy, but he gets it. And he was saying, you know, even CBS News after had to admit that that was a good hour-long talk with the president. So impeachment is over, and no matter what they try to do, they can't come back and do it again. Even if they did come back and do it again, it would be ridiculously ineffective. And so instead, we get GIFs like this. Which is fantastic. So there's that. Here was a good clip from Australia. This is Australians, to all my Aussie friends out there, to all my Aussie friends.
The president's misconduct cannot be decided at the ballot box, for we cannot be assured that the vote will be fairly won.
Oh, Jack, can't be decided at the ballot box. I mean, the man is essentially being impeached for winning the 2016 election. And they just don't want the American public to determine who their president is, because all indicators are that Trump is going to be re-elected this year and probably re-elected in even stronger numbers than he won in 2016.
Well, and these are also the primary criticisms that were delivered against Donald Trump's supporters in the lead up to the 2016 election. You know, the Democrats and the Hillary Clinton supporters were going around saying, well, they're never going to accept the result. There was a big fear that they were going to, embark upon some pseudo-civil war over it. And now you've got the Democrats saying, we don't want you to have a vote anymore. So look, let's just look at Adam Schiff's history of the way that he summarises things. This is the man who told everybody, who told Congress that he and only he had secret information linking Donald Trump to the Russian
This is
collusion
Australia.
hoax. And then when he was finally asked, he was unable to provide that information. That then, it morphed very slowly and subtly into the Ukraine hoax, which has obviously been a little bit of a farce, and that's playing out now. It's just been partisan, yes, on both sides, but, the Democrats kicked it off, so they get what they deserve. This is not a man that you really want to be dictating who can and cannot vote. This is a man who is completely partisan, who needs to take a step back, and honestly, he's handing the re-election back to Donald Trump because his polls are looking good, and voters have simply...
I just gotta say, we don't do this in America about any other country. These guys understand our political system better than most of the people that talk about it on television here. Kudos to my Aussie friends. Big kudos to all my Aussie friends out there. Seriously. So there's a lot more going on besides that. The next topic that I know that we could stay on impeachment and all that for a long time. I vented on the podcast about it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So I want to move on to something I found about James Baker. If you guys remember back in the day, we read through the IG report on Comey's memos. And in the IG report on Comey's memos, there was a portion where they talked about somebody that had provided a copy of all of the memos to the IG claiming whistleblower status. And at the time, we kind of poked through trying to figure out who the whistleblower could possibly have been. And I'm just looking for it here. Again, I just got on here to riff with you guys and I didn't have some big list of things organized and ready to go. My bad. But at the time, we were trying to figure out who this whistleblower was. And I did. Okay. This is from a thread I did in August of 2019 when the IG report came out. There's a whistleblower who had all the memos. It could be anyone, but Prestep comes to mind. That's what I thought at the time. He received them from Page, interesting and done without others knowing. And this is the section that was listed here. Shortly after Comey's removal, a set of the 7 memos was provided to the OIG by a department employee who claimed whistleblower status. This individual viewed the memos as extremely sensitive documents and was concerned that there should be a separate set deposited somewhere for safekeeping. The OIG handled and stored all 7 memos consistent with the requirements for the classified information, even though only Memo 1 had any classification markings at that time. That means that it was James Baker who was the whistleblower. That means that as soon as James Comey was fired, James Baker, attorney being investigated for leaks, the one who revealed Durham first, James Baker took the memos before the IG started this investigation and brought them over there to them for safekeeping under whistleblower status. Very interesting. How do I know it's James Baker? There was a drop from CNN of the Mueller investigation information. I'm going to get to Seth Rich in a minute. Of the Mueller investigation, it was a FOIA release of interviews done with several people who were interviewed by Robert Mueller. Here it says, in that release, there is an interview, and I'm going to try and make this bigger for everybody. Come on. Of James Rybicki. And in there, it says it. Are you ready? Comey was terminated on a Tuesday. This is an interview with Robert Mueller. Comey was terminated on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday following his termination, Lisa Page requested copies of all the memos to be provided to McCabe. Rybicki asked her to confirm McCabe had requested them, and she replied in the affirmative. That morning, following this exchange with Page, Rybicki made 3 copies, one for Rybicki, one for Page, and one for Baker. Baker may have later given copies to the Department of Justice's Office of the Inspector General. Different Baker. Different James Baker, not the Secretary of the Treasury, James Baker, the General Counsel at the FBI, James Baker. This James Baker. Former FBI General Counsel James Baker came under criminal investigation for allegations he leaked unauthorized information to the media, according to congressional transcripts released by House Republicans Tuesday. There's a lot of Bakers. They need to fix these names, really. They really do. I understand. So, do I think that Baker's some good guy? Hell no. Do I think that, as President Trump said in the first clip that we played today, they all started ratting on each other? Absolutely. I sure do. Now remember, that IG report based on Comey's memos was the first criminal referral of James Comey that we got, that the DOJ declined to prosecute, and we spent lots of time going over on this channel why, what the reasons were, etc., so on and so forth. So there's that. This is not finished. I'm still going. I got to be honest, I'm not liking what I'm reading in some of these interviews of some of the early Trump staff at all. It's really not. I just don't like everybody, you know. I'm just glad a lot of them left. I'm not going to say anything specific about any one person. I just know that my instincts and my gut are good because I've been proven right about things that I kind of kept to myself over and over again. And there are just a few people that I just did not like for one reason or another. So there's that story. There was also another dump of information in regards to McCabe's wrongful termination suit that I am in the midst of reading. It's several hundred pages. It is from a left-leaning organization. Another story that we just broke on Uncover DC that you guys might not have heard, but I don't remember if I did a video on this. I don't think I did. It was on Dan Bongino's podcast last week. He covered the story, which was really awesome. Here it is. I don't know if I did this. I can't remember. But even though I'm not making videos as often, guys, I'm super busy. Trust me. This article is Soros-backed not-for-profit behind the indictment of Parnas and Fruman. You guys remember Lev Parnas. He was mentioned in the impeachment hearings often. Lev Parnas was a Republican donor who recorded the president during that fundraising dinner that the media went nuts with a week and a half ago. And Lev Parnas is currently under indictment. The Democrats during the impeachment hearings read off text messages between Lev Parnas and Shokin. He read text messages that basically demonstrated that Shokin was using Lev Parnas as a go-between to filter information back in because none of the folks that needed to come over here and testify or talk to officials could get visas issued by the State Department. So what is this story about? Lev Parnas is indicted on FEC violations in the Southern District of New York. And I don't think there's a better story that you could take and place next to the Michael Cohen story. It's just the same plot rolled out over and over and over again. It gets so tiring. But here we go. Somebody said the total slime ball, the bombshell recording that actually made Trump look good. Absolutely 100% made Trump look good. Yes. I'm like, well, thank God this man's president. This was amazing. This was perfect. Lev Parnas gets indicted with his partner Igor Fruman for these campaign finance violations. The charges read that he funneled money into political campaigns and super PACs that was really coming from foreigners. The problem with this is the initial complaint was filed with the FEC in July of 2018. Nobody was talking about Lev Parnas in July of 2018. Nobody knew who he was. There were 2 obscure Russian language articles on the internet. 2. Trust me when I tell you that's it. I spent hours searching for any reference to Lev Parnas in this time frame. There aren't any references during this time frame. The CLC is the organization that made the original complaint. The Campaign Legal Center. Here it is, the original complaint made against Parnas' company, his partner, and him. It alleges in here that they made a contribution to 2 super PACs of a significant amount of money, but the money was shady. And as soon as this complaint was released, all of a sudden, tons of mainstream media articles start coming out about Parnas. Remember the time frame, 2018, July, 2 years ago almost, before any of this, before the Mueller investigation wrapped up. When Giuliani was working on behalf of President Trump to defend him against the charges in the Mueller investigation, that's when this complaint is made. What's interesting about that?
Well, a lot of times Americans always want to know,
That's
how is
not
our
what I
representatives
wanted.
in your country?
After all of this stuff starts hitting the fan, the CLC files another complaint, an amended complaint with the FEC. Give me 1 second. Bear with me. I'm looking for something in particular. Here we go. So there's a follow-up complaint to this complaint when things really start heating up with impeachment, etc., so on and so forth. And there was another lawsuit against Parnas in Florida. The gentleman who was suing him won a judgment. And inside of that lawsuit, there were financial records and details. And so the CLC took those financial records and bolstered up their original complaint that they had filed in 2018. Then on October 10th, 2019, they post this. CLC complaint results in arrest of 2 Ukrainian American Trump donors connected to Giuliani. Oh my gosh. They're connected to Giuliani? Wow. These arrests stemmed from a Campaign Legal Center complaint. In July of 2018, CLC uncovered how these 2 men had laundered a 6-figure contribution to President Trump's super PAC, which is illegal, by the way, so they don't know what they're talking about, through a shell corporation, and filed a formal complaint with the Federal Election Commission. The DOJ indictment says Fruman and Parnas had pushed for the removal of the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, and that those efforts were conducted at the request of one or more Ukrainian government officials. What's the problem here, guys? Well, what's this? What's this? Wow, it's a list of the donors to the CLC. And what's listed on here? Oh, goodness. Look at that. What a shock. The Open Society Foundation. Who would have thought? Who would have thunk it that George Soros money could be behind the complaint which ultimately led to the indictment of a man and his partner who were uncovering all the crap that George Soros and his Democrat friends were involved in? Who would have thunk it? I mean, when no one else in the world knew who Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman were, the Campaign Legal Center had all of a sudden flagged for them this $325,000 contribution to a super PAC. Of all the FEC donations they could be questioning, they happened to narrow down on this one. What a coincidence, wouldn't you say? So that story with more detail, of course, is up on Uncover DC. If you're not signed up for our mailing list, please do so. It pumps out anytime there's an update on the website of anything. So if you're looking to stay in the know about what we're doing, please sign up for the mailing list. There is so much more I need to talk to you guys about. There's so much more. However, I'm going to have to jump off here in a second. But know this. Within the next couple days, I'll be live again. I have General Flynn information for you. I have more FOIA information for you. I'm working on 4 stories right now, all at the same time. I also have a story that I've been working on for a really long time that I've been trying not to talk about, because it's one of those stories that if you start talking about it, things tend to disappear. But I think it's time to open this one up, because I just can't do it on my own. I just can't. If anyone's interested in researching for a piece that I'm working on, I'll bring together a small group of you. You can email tips@uncoverdc.com. That's tips, T-I-P-S, @uncoverdc.com. Before I go and thank all of you for being so awesome all the time, I do want to say the one thing that has sustained me and kept me going, one of the major things, is Patreon or Subscribestar. And every month I see fluctuations up and down, which is obviously going to happen. But I'm going to start pushing this a little harder because I don't like doing it, but I really need the help. If you can, even contribute $5, $10, $1, whatever, every month to keep me going, it would be really very much appreciated. You can find me at patreon.com/TracyBeans with a Z. You can find me at Subscribestar, subscribestar.com/TracyBeans with a Z. PayPal.me/TracyBeans as well. I'm running a news organization. I've got authors. I've got people working. I've got all kinds of stuff going on, all possible because of you guys supporting me. And I don't like to ask, but I'm asking. So if you could check it out, if you can. If not, all the information, as always, is always free. Nothing is ever something you need to pay for. So if you can't support me financially, nothing's going to change. This will all be available to you. It's truly a voluntary thing. I appreciate all you guys so much. Stick around. We will be back very soon. Thank you so much and have a great weekend. Love you guys.